Hi, welcome to my second video in the Systems Administration series. We're going to be doing some advanced disk stuff. I know I said that we were going to make the Apache server, but I think we should go over disk stuff first. So I'm going to go over how to create a RAID 5 and how to set up an encrypted container for that, and then have LVM on top of that and all that jazz. So first what we want to do is we want to take our system that's just like we left it, and we want to unmount our partition. And so now we need to remove, because we're going to use the same names, so we're just going to go ahead and remove that. Okay, so it is vg remove storage. Do you really want to remove the volume group storage containing one logical volume? Yes. Do you really want to remove the active logic volume? Yes. Okay, so they were both successfully removed. We can look at that. There's our disk. So what we're actually going to do is we're going to go ahead and remove this because we can hot plug. So we'll just detach this disk. Then you can see that it goes away. We're going to remove that disk because we don't actually want to use it anymore. Maybe in the future, but right now we're going to make a bunch of 32 gig disks. We're going to make 4 of them. They're all going to be on the same partition, and it's going to be raw. So you normally wouldn't do this. You wouldn't have this many disk images on the same disk that you're going to RAID. All right, so we need to add one more disk. So now we got 4 disks. You can see them right here. Now what we need to do is to create the RAID. So we're going to do mdadm create /dev. We're going to make md0. This is going to be a level 5 RAID. And we are going to have our RAID devices set to 4. We're going to have dev SDB, SDC, dev SDD, and dev SDE. So that's all of our disks. So go ahead and create that. Our fingers are off there. And you can see our RAID device. We have MD0, which is RAID 5, and it's all of these. Great. So now we can actually set up an encrypted container, which we're going to use crypt setup, Lux format, and then we're just going to go straight on to MD0. So actually, I'm going to go over real quick. You could set up a partition here if that was what your needs were. So you would just like fdisk dev md0, and then you could create a GPT partition table. You could make some partitions, but for our cases, we don't need to do that. That's not something we're interested in doing. You don't have to have a partition. A lot of times people will tell you just to do it, but it can make things like more difficult if you don't need it. So we're not going to make one, but you can if you want. The setup would be the same, just right here. Instead of using dev md0, you'd use the first partition that you made. We're going to format that. We're going to type yes in all caps. We're going to create a password, and it'll take a minute to set that up while it formats the container. All right, wonderful. Let's see what we got. So now after we've created that, we need to open it. We'll go dev md0, and then we'll say something like crypt setup, right? Sounds good to me. Put in our password. Boom. Now we have our encrypted container on top of our RAID. So you could also just put a file system right on top of this, right on crypt setup, go from there. I actually don't like the name crypt setup. I don't know why I did that. So we're going to rename that. Okay, it's actually DM setup, rename mapper, crypt setup, and then we're going to change it to storage. Yeah, there we go. That looks much better. I was just kind of like typing. But anyway, so now we have that. You can create a file system right on top of this if you want and mount it. I'm going to create an LVM for this just so you guys can see it again. So we're going to create top of this. We're going to PV create. So now we have a physical volume created on that. Now we need our volume group, which we're going to use the same ones that we used in the last video. Yeah, so we need dev mapper, and then we're going to do crypt storage. We got that. And now we can create our LVM just like we did the last time. We'll name it HTTPS. We'll say -L. Make it 32 gigs. It is going to go on the storage. So now if we do a PVS, you can see that. VGS, you can see our storage. And then LVS, you can see our LVM. And you can also see it here too. So we have our disk. We have our RAID, which is all of these disks. Then we have our encrypted container, and then we have our mountable volume. So we can go ahead and make our file system now. We're just going to use extended for just like we did the last time. dev mapper, and now we can do storage. It's going to create it. Now we can go into our fstab. You can see it should be exactly the same as this. This is the same. We don't have to change anything in here. You don't even have to right quit. You can just quit. And then we're going to do a mount all. Then we'll see that they are mounted. So that's how you set up a RAID with an encrypted volume and then using LVM on top of that. So there are a couple of other things that we need to go over, because if you were to reboot this right now, it's not going to work. Your system doesn't know how to unlock the encrypted container at boot. And then since we have this in our fstab, it's going to try to mount this, and it's not going to work. So what we will do here is go into our crypt tab, which we don't have anything in here yet. Okay, so we're actually going to open another one of these. We're going to SSH into RHEL 8. And we can do, so we got by UUID. So then the one that we want is for MD0. So we're going to take our UUID here. We're going to copy it, copy this. And then we're going to come up here, which is in our crypt tab. And we're going to put crypt storage, which is the one that we're using. It's the name. And we're going to have UUID equals, and we can paste in our UUID here. And then we're going to have none and discard. So what these tell us to do is, none is a key file. So you can actually make a key file and put it on like your root hard drive or maybe a USB key or something. So it needs that to boot. And then you would give the file path of that key. That's how you would do it when you boot. But for this, we're just going to use a password. And then discard tells it to use discard because it's a, you know, this is on an SSD. So now we're just going to right quit that. Once we're done with that, we have everything set up the way that we want it. So we're going to go ahead and update our initram fs, which is going to include the crypt tab stuff so that it knows how to unlock the disk. That's what we're doing here, because otherwise it wouldn't know. We edited that file, but it wouldn't know how to do it on boot still. So we have to regenerate the initrams, which we're good. And then we're just going to do, for good measure, grub2 make config -o /etc/grub2.efi. All right, so now we should be able to reboot all fine with our new disks. So let's give it a try. It sure is taking a while, so this is not good. Okay, so now it wants our passphrase. Okay, so this has been taking a while. So we obviously have messed something up somewhere, right? So this will be a great time for me to show something else. We're just going to reset the VM here. And we're going to go into a troubleshooting mode because, you know, in the real world, you're out there doing some system administration stuff. You can't always expect to get everything right, and you may have problems. So we're going to go to the Linux command over here, and we're going to go single. This will tell us to boot into single user mode, which will let us perform some maintenance. Let's get this out of here. We'll get to see what happens here. So the single user mode is pretty much how you can get into, you know, fix stuff if you have an issue. All right, so it wants our password. Okay, I guess not. Let's log in, give root password for maintenance. Okay, so we have our MD0. So what exactly is wrong? So it did find crypt storage, right? Check our fstab. We have our UUID of the disk, so it did find crypt stab. We're going to open our storage device. Okay, so it actually mounted. Okay, so I mean, I unlocked it. We checked the block ID, unlocked it, and everything looks fine to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and we're gonna do one last thing. Okay, so we're gonna go in here. We're gonna take off quiet and Red Hat grub boot so that we can kind of see what's going on. Okay, so it wants our password. Alright, so that was super weird. I didn't change anything. Give it a ls block. Okay, well, it booted that time fine, so I'm not sure exactly what was going on with that, but we might look into that later. It booted the second time fine. So that is how you would create all of this storage for yourself. And then, you know, these RAID devices are they're real flexible, right? So it's software RAID, so we can actually just create another disk in here. Let's say if we needed more space, we slide another disk in, right? So now we should have another disk. So what we can actually do here is we can go mdadm grow RAID devices. So our RAID devices will go up to 5 now instead of 4. We'll make a backup file, which is just for critical data, so you don't have to worry about the file system being like super big. And then we'll say this, so we'll do a sudo, put in our little password. Okay, so there's one thing before we do this. We need to add a drive. I did forget about that part. So we're going to add to our RAID array, we're going to use dev SDF. Now that we've added that, now we can grow. Needs to back up the section. Boom, our storage has been grown. Okay, so we can check the status of our reshape by doing this, and we can see that it hasn't been moving. So I did that echo max into the sync max to kick this into gear. It didn't like it with sudo, so I just went to the root account. I'm not sure what that was about either. So we can actually watch this. We can actually watch this growing in real time. So it's going to reshape the RAID. This always takes a while, and the bigger your disks are, the longer this is going to take. So I know I have a pretty huge RAID on my server back here for storing stuff. And whenever I have to reshape that, I think the last time I added a disk and reshaped that, it took a couple of days, I think. So, you know, we'll just wait here, and for you guys, this won't take long at all, but for me, this will. And, you know, I've done RAID reshapes before, so I've never really ran into that issue where it wouldn't sync like that. So I just, you know, did a quick Google, found this, tried it, boom, it worked. So don't be afraid to, you know, use your search engine. That's what like 90% of my job as a systems administrator is like, you know, looking stuff up. There's a lot of stuff I can do just off the top of my head, but I still look a lot of stuff up. And anyone who tells you that they don't, they're lying to themselves, and they're lying to you. There's just too much for us to, you know, remember everything. Probably someone who works with mdadm like all the time might know that. All right, and we're done. We're just gonna go ahead and close this out. We'll do this block, and you can also get stats this way. So you can see how many disks we have in here. You can see what our array size is. So now we can see that our disk is 127, but our RAID crypt is not. So we want to resize this now. Our password. Now we have the full usage. We do a PVS, and we have to resize our PV. So we can do a PV resize /dev/mapper/crypt storage PVS. And now you can see we have our full size. We have 95 free. We got our physical volume is 127. We can do a VGS. You can see our physical storage. And that's how you set up RAID devices and encrypt them and even grow your storage live. So like during this, you know, our website wouldn't have been down. We did all this live. And then if you wanted to add more space to your HTML, you know, you just resize that and grow the file system. Of course, if you're ever doing that, you'll resize 2FS, you do storage, HTTPS to grow the file system. But I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Drop a like and subscribe, and have a wonderful day.